The effects core pack just got hit with the biggest update that it's ever had. So in this video I'm going through all of the 16 effects, what they do, how to use them and what's new about them. Here's a quick overview of what's changed. Every single effect is now a fuse instead of a macro. That is what lets me make them a lot less render heavy and faster, because honestly the old macros took a while to render. And they are all on the edit page now, so you can just drag them straight onto a clip. And there's also a brand new effect called New Stroke Pro. And if you already own this pack, everything in this video is a free update for you. And if you don't, this is basically a full tour of the pack, so you know what you're getting into and whether it's for you. Let's just get right into it. Alright, so the first thing we're going to do once we install the pack is we'll just unzip the zip file here, and then we'll go into the folder, and then we can see we have 3 different installers. So you'll just run the installer for your operating system. So I'm on a MacBook, so I'll just run the Mac installer here. So then you'll just double tap that, and I'll just press continue, install, and then you'll need to write your password, and then it basically installs all of the fuses and also the DRFX files, so we can use them on the edit page. Once we've done that, we'll just need to restart DaVinci Resolve, and then we can use them. So once we reinstalled it, we can now start using the effects. And the first effect I'm going to show you how you can use is the new Shatter, which basically lets you make a shatter effect for anything, whether it's an icon, if it's some text, if it's a logo, or it's just a PNG. You can basically use it on anything. So you can both use it on the Fusion page, and you can also use it on the edit page. So if you want to use it on the edit page, you'll just go under effects here, then you'll open the effects, and then you'll take the effects core pack, and then you'll be able to access all of the effects right here. So if we want to use the new shatter, we can just grab that and drag it onto the clip. So as you can see right now, I already have it inside of the Fusion page, so I'll just go in there and show you how to use it. So we'll just jump in here, and then I'll just delete the one I have already, and then to access that in the Fusion page, we'll just tap on Shift and Space, and then type new shatter, and then you can already see that we got a nice shatter effect right now. So the first thing we can choose is what the pattern of shatter is. So right now it's a glass. You can also do grid. So this is basically just like a grid it shatters into. You can also do bricks, which is kind of like some hexagons. The bricks here is a little bit taller, and the hexagon is a little bit less tall. And then you can also do triangles, but for the most part I'll just be using glass, but you also have the option to do one of the other options if you want to. Then the center is basically where it shatters from. So you can see if you drag it all the way over here, it'll basically shatter towards the left. If you drag it over here, it will shatter towards the right side. So I'll just leave it usually at where the middle of the logo or the text. And then we can choose the shatter count, and that's basically just how many pieces it will shatter into. And as you can see right now, 2000 is the maximum, but if you want to make it even bigger, you can also do 6,000 for example if you want to. And as you can see, the maximum range is 5,000, so you can't really do 6,000, but you can do all the way up to 5,000. I'll usually leave it at like 500 or something, but yeah, that's up to you. Then the shatter displacement is just how big the shatter will be, like how far it shatters out. And then the rotation is if you want to rotate it a little bit once it shatters out. Then we can also enable some fade, so once it shatters out towards the edges, it will start fading out like that. And the same with the scale down is once it shatters out towards the edges, it'll basically scale down the shatter. And if you open the random drop down here, you can basically just choose another seed. So if you don't like how it looks, you can just press reseed or drag the slider right here. And let's say you want to animate, you can either do it by just adding some keyframes on the displacement, but what I like to do is just go onto the animation tab, then enable the animation right here, and then just drag up the shatter displacement to something like this, and then you can see we have a shatter animation. But let's say we want the shatter to happen at frame 80. We can just go to frame 80, press and set start frame, and then it will start shattering at frame 80 instead. Then we can choose if we want the mode to be shatter or symbol. So the difference between these two modes is basically shatter is going to shatter the logo whatever at that frame, and a symbol is going to assemble it. So if we choose a symbol, it will be shattered in the beginning, and then it'll start assembling the logo at frame 80. So usually we'll just use shatter, but you can also do assemble if you want to. Then we can choose how many frames the animation will last. So if we do like a super low amount, the shatter will be super fast. If we make it really big, it will just be a very, very slow shatter. The easing is just the easing curve basically. So you can choose how you want the easing curve to be. You can either do ease in, where it goes slow in the beginning and then speeds up over time, or you can do ease out, where it goes fast in the beginning beginning and then slows down over time. Ease in out is just going slow in the beginning, going fast in the middle, and then slowing down over time. But you can also do custom, then you can draw your exact custom curve. So then we can do like this ease out curve like this, and then we also have a super clean animation. And then you can enable some motion blur if you want to with this one right here. So that's basically how you can use the shatter. And now I'll show you how you can use the new glow. And the new glow is basically just used to add any glow. So basically anytime that you'll use the soft glow, you can just use the new glow instead, because it's just a lot higher quality glow. So if we just jump into the fusion page of this motion graphic that I made, we can see we have the soft glow right here, which is basically just a really low quality glow. You don't have really a lot of things you can choose in the controls here. So this is the soft glow right here, and this is the new glow. So if we look closely, we can see the new glow is just a lot more detailed. So the way to access the new glow is basically the same as the new shatter. You'll just tap on shift and space, and then you can type new glow, and you can also access it in the edit page if you want to. So let me just show you. It's here under effects, and then we have the new glow right here. But as you can see right now, you can't really see the glow, but it's because the intensity is very low. So the first thing we see under the glow is the channel. So this is basically just the channel we are targeting. So right now it's luminance. Luminance basically just means how bright the color is. So this will target the brighter colors like white, for example. If we do blue, we'll target the blue colors. So if we do source here, this is where we can see which parts we're targeting with the threshold. Then we can see we can start to isolate the blue colors like this by dragging on this threshold slider here. If we do luminance, you can see we will lose a lot of the blue colors. So if you're doing blue motion graphics, you will just choose blue. If you're doing something with red motion graphics, you can do red, but it really depends on the look you're going for. So then we can just dial in the threshold here. So we'll try and target most of the blue colors without targeting the background too much. And we'll just go back to result. Then we can choose the quality of the glow. And if I make it like really big like this, you can maybe see when I change the quality, we will be getting a little bit more detail in it, but you won't really notice this too much if you're on a lower like intensity. So if we are in high, for example, and drag it up to max, you won't really be able to see like the biggest difference when you're not having a lot of glow. So the intensity right under the quality here is basically just how intense is the glow, and then you can just dial that in. And the radius is just how big is the glow. So if I drag this up a little bit more, you can see when I start using the radius, we will see the glow getting a bit bigger or smaller. But I'll usually just leave this at 1. I'll just drag down the intensity a little bit again. And then you can use the spread slider here. And the spread slider is also what we call the gamma channel we are targeting, which also is a way to make the glow bigger. So I'll just leave it at something like this right here. And then you can also use the fall off here. So if we just drag with this here, you can see it changes the look of it a little bit. So if we drag it up, we'll make the glow a lot more soft. If we drag it down like this, it'll be a lot more like harsh, the glow. But for motion graphics, I'll usually just leave it at 1. But if you're like adding glow to something you've shot, like some videos you've shot with a camera, sometimes I actually like to drag up the fall off just a little bit, because then it will give the highlights this really soft roll off, which looks pretty good, I think. The aspect is just like the aspect. So this is just if you want to have like a vertical glow, or you want like this more anamorphic glow like this here. You can also do that with the aspect, and you can actually create some pretty cool looks with it. The color and output is if you want to add like a specific color for the glow. Right now it's white, the glow, which basically just means it have the color of what is on. But you can also make it red if you want to. You can make it green or whatever. Usually I'll just leave it at white, but if you want to add some tint to it, you can do that. And you can also control the tint strength. So let's say you make it blue, you can just make it a little bit less tinted with this one right here. And under the tint, we can actually control like the saturation of the glow. So if you see when I drag it up, it'll look very vibrant, the glow. And if I drag it down, it'll be very desaturated, the glow. You can also add some chromatic aberration, which is pretty cool. So you can see right here, we're getting some RGB splitting when we drag up the chromatic aberration. But usually I won't use this too much, because I'll just use the chromatic aberration effect, which is also inside of this pack. Then you can also choose the apply mode, whether you want it to be add, over, or screen. Usually I just leave it screen, but you can also choose one of the other ones. And then here we can choose the blend. So this is just like the overall blend of the effect if you want to drag down the opacity of the effect. And that's basically it for the New Glow. Now we'll take a look at the new Light Sweep Pro. And the new Light Sweep Pro is actually an effect I like to pair a lot with the New Glow, which we used before. But this is great to something like this, to your motion graphics. You can also use it on text to add like the shine effect. And you can also use it on your icons to add like a nice shine on it. And you can also even do like animated like sweep effects, like light sweep effects, which is pretty cool. So let's just jump into the Fusion page and I'll show you how to use it. But if you want to, you can also grab it here on the edit page, here on the new Light Sweep Pro. So the way to access it in the Fusion page is you'll just press Shift and space and then type new Light Sweep Pro. And now you can see we have like a nice light sweep. So the first control we have is sweep only. Then we will only see the light sweep and we'll basically just make the background transparent, like whatever it's on. Then we can choose like the sweep intensity, so how intense is the sweep actually. And then we can choose the width of it. So if we want to make the width less, we can do that. Then we have the soft edge. So this is just how harsh is the light sweep. So by default it's very soft, maybe even too soft. And then you can just drag it down a little bit and play with the width of it. The angle is just like the angle of the light sweep. Then we have the center. So this is just wherever it's placed. So if you want to add it at the top of the corner here, you can do that. And then if you change the angle, it will rotate from that place. Then we have the blend. So this is just like the overall blend of the effect. So then you can just drag that down if you want to. Then we have the edge settings. So in here we can just choose how intense is like the edge of it. We can choose like the size of the edge and the softness as well. So if we just drag the softness up really a lot and drag down the size, you can almost see like we get two kind of edges. So that's pretty cool. So if you want to like make a double edge rotating, you can do it just by dragging down the size, dragging up the softness. But I'll just leave it at this for now. And then let's say you want to make the edge wider than what the sweep is, then you just drag up the sweep width, which is pretty cool. And then if you want to enable a glow on the edge, you can do that with this one right here. And then you just choose how intense is the glow and how big is the glow. And then we have the sweep control. So here we can basically add like a color to the sweep or to the edge. Then you can choose if you want it to be on the sweep, the edge, both. I like to add a color to the sweep sometimes. For example, right here, when we have like a yellow kind of orange looking thing, then we can just make like a orange look for the sweep, which I like. It looks pretty good. And then once we have dialed in the look, we can basically animate it if we want to. So then we just go to the animation tab and enable animation. And right now we can see this on sweep. And let's say we want the sweep to start at frame 60. We can just go to frame 60, then press start sweep at this frame, and then the sweep will start right here. Then we can choose how long the sweep duration will be. So if we drag it up, you can see the sweep will be very slow. If we drag it down like this, we get a super quick sweep. And I also like to add this to like logos and stuff. So for say DaVinci Resolve icon here, we can add like new Light Sweep Pro and then turn down the soft edge a little bit like that, the intensity as well. And then we can just enable animation, and then you can see we get a nice sweep on the logo. And then we can also choose the easing curve. So if we want it to be ease in, so it goes slow in the beginning and then speeds up. If it goes fast in the beginning and then it slows down over time, or if we want it to be ease in out, going slow in the beginning, fast in the middle, and then slows down over time. And we can also do a custom curve, so we just draw our completely own curve like this. I'll just leave it at linear, and then I'll choose the mode to a loop, for example. And at a loop, you can see if we drag points down a little bit like this, we can even drag it down even more, something like this. Then you can see it just goes back and forth. It will just loop, go over there, go back, go over there. That's basically just how that works. And then you just choose how fast it will go. So if we make it very fast here, you can do that. And we can also do rotation, which I think is pretty cool. Then we get like this really nice rotation here. And then we can also time scale. So this will basically just go from the beginning of the clip to the end. So then we can add it up here, and the end frame we can add down here. And then we'll just go from A to B over the length of the clip. And that's basically how you can use the new Light Sweep Pro. Now we will take a look at the new glitch, which is basically a plugin to let you make these glitch effects here. So for example, here in the text, we can see we have this really clean glitch effect. So we can either grab this in the Fusion page or the edit page. For now, I'll just use the edit page version and then just drag it onto the text. And then you can see we get this pretty clean glitch effect. Then we can choose like the look of it. So we have some presets that you can choose from. The first one is the subtle digital, which is just a subtle glitch look. Then you can also do like heavy signal loss, cast dropout. There's quite a lot of different ones you can choose from. But the first thing we can choose of the sliders is basically basically the amount, so how intense is the glitch. Then we can choose the block size. So this is just like these blocks here. You can see right now they're pretty small, but then you can make them even bigger if you want to, like this. And the block offset is just how far they will glitch. And then the scanline jitter is, you can see these small jitters right here. It's basically just how big is these small jitters. And the seed is just if you don't like the look of the current frame you're on, you can just change to a new seed. Then we can choose the RGB split amount. So this is just if we want some RGB split or chromatic aberration, we can choose how much we want of it and like the angle of it as well if we want to. Then you can choose how many iterations there is. So it will be a little bit difficult to see, but right now we are at 3. So this is just like normal RGB split with blue, green and red. But if we drag it up, you can see we'll just make it a lot more soft, like the separations between, because right now it looks really harsh. When we drag it up, it will become like almost blend into each other, the colors even more. I mostly like the look of like 3 iterations. And then we can choose if we want some bit crush or anything. And it's pretty hard to see on this clip right here, but let's say if I grab like a video clip like this one right here, and then I'll just add the new glitch to that one as well. And then we can add some bit crush. So you can see once I start dragging up the bit crush, it will look like really low quality. So bit crush is basically just like removing the color information from the clip. So usually a clip has like 8-bit, which is 256 different shades, the red and the green and the blue. But once we start dragging this up, there will be less color information contained in the image. Then we can also add some scanline opacity. Yeah, I'll just go back to this one right here, the text. And then you can see like the scan lines is just adding these black kind of bars. And then with the width of them, you can choose basically just how big are these scan lines. And yeah, that's pretty much it for the degrade here and the controls page. Then on the animation page, you can just choose like the speed of the glitch. If you think it's a bit too fast, you can drag down and also make it even faster. And you can also add auto burst. So this will just make it so it isn't on every single frame like the glitch. It will just glitch randomly. So this can also be pretty cool. And now I'm going back to this one right here. But yeah, it can be pretty cool on some effects, like having some random glitches sometimes like that. And then you just choose how often the glitch will come. So as you can see right now it's 61 frames, so it won't be coming that often, the glitch. But if we drag the duration up, this is just how long the glitch will last once it actually is coming. You can see we are getting glitches on pretty much every frame now. And the randomness is just how random the glitches will be. So sometimes it will come after, let's say, 2 seconds. Other times it will come after 1 second if we start dragging up the randomness burst. That's pretty much how you can use the new glitch. Now we'll take a look on how you can use the new Lens Distort. The new Lens Distort is just to add some lens distortion to either your motion graphics, your videos, or basically anything that you want to add some lens distortion to. So you can actually use it to add like these kind of transitions like this right here, but you can also just use it on your motion graphics. So I'll just remove this one right here and add a new one. You can either find it on the edit page right here, or you can find it inside of the diffusion page. First of all, we have a couple of presets that we can choose from, but yeah, I'll just go back to default, and then we can choose how we want it to be. So we can add some lens distortion this way here. We can make it like this here, so it's distorting the other way, and let's do just like this. Then if you want to fine tune it, you can use the fine tune slider here, and if you want to squeeze it even more, you can use this here. Then you can also choose the center of it, so if you want this to be in the center, you can do that like that. But yeah, also we have like the auto scale. So let's say you start making it a positive value like this here. If you use auto scale, you can see right now if I do transparent, you can see it starts just distorting backwards like this. And if you do auto scale, you just scale as it should be scaling, so you won't be seeing anything that isn't there. Then you can choose the edges if you want them to be clamp. So if we remove auto scale, this is basically clamp. It'll just make the image continue. You can also do mirror like this here, so it will just mirror the image. And then you can also add some chromatic aberration like this. Then straight up you can see we get some chromatic aberration towards the edges, which is also how we made this transition thing here, where basically just animated the amount. So we have like a big amount like this, and then we just went forward and dragged it down, so kind of like this right here, just with another easing curve. And that's basically it for the new Lens Distort. Now let's take a look at the new long shadow, which is basically just to add a long shadow to anything, whether it's icons, if it's text or whatever. So I'll show you how to do this in the diffusion page, but you can also do it on the edit page just by going over here to effects, and then you'll just find the long shadow right here, and then you can add that to your know, your icons or whatever. Let's jump into the Fusion page now, and then I'll just remove this one right here and add a new one by tapping on Shift and Space and typing new long shadow. Then there's a couple of presets that I choose from, but I'll just do like the classic flat one. Then you can choose the length of it, so just how long is the long shadow. You can choose the softness, so the softness is just around the edges here. If it's a little bit harsh, you can just add some softness into it like that, pretty clean. And then you can choose the opacity, so if you think it's a bit too intense, at default you can just drag it down a little bit. Then you choose the color, so if you want to make it red, you can do that. If you want to make it like a dark shade of red, you can do it, or you can even make it a gradient. So see at the end here, we can make it red if we want to, make it yellow. I'll just leave it at a single color. I'll just drag this up again so we can see a little bit more what the fade actually does. So the fade here, you can either choose linear, which is what I usually recommend. You can also do exponential, then we also get a pretty cool look like this here. And you can also do custom curve, so default is just a linear curve, but you can also make it your own custom curve like this or like this here. Basically do any curve that you like. So yeah, that's basically it for the new long shadow. Now let's just go on to the next effect, which is the new bevel. You can add it to any icons to make it have like a 3D look and make it pop. You can also add it to your text and add it to your logos or whatever. So I'll just remove this one right here, and then we can go over here to the effects core pack and grab whatever one we want. So now I'll show you how you can use the new bevel, which is also inside of the effects core pack, and you can basically just use this from the edit page just by tagging this one right here called new bevel, and then you can add a nice 3D bevel to your logo, your PNG, your text or whatever. And you can also access this in the Fusion page if you want. So I'll just show you how you can do it in the Fusion page. So you'll just go in here, and then you will just press on Shift and Space and type new bevel. And as you can see, we can't really see a lot of stuff right now because red and the blur is too low, but then if we drag that up, we'll be able to see it. And then the intensity, how intense is the bevel. And then if this is a bit too small, we can just drag it up to, let's do 7, and that's a lot better, I think. Then we can also change like the angle of the bevel. We change the blend, so I'll just drag the blender down a little bit, and I'm pretty happy with this look right here. Then you can choose if you want it to be inner bevel or outer bevel. So this is basically just swapping the places, basically just going where the white part is up here to make it down here. And you can also make it an emboss instead if you want to, and then it will just work kind of like the emboss effect in DaVinci Resolve, like the default one right here. Well, this was the new emboss. I need to grab the real emboss, this one right here, where we get like this emboss map, you can say. And then we can just choose the colors that we want. So if we want it to be like a white, if we want it to be a yellow instead, if we want this up here to be a green color, maybe we can do that. So yeah, that's basically how you can use the new bevel. So now I'll show you how to use the new Stroke Pro, which is the new effect in the effects core pack. So you can either access this on the Fusion page or the edit page, and on the Fusion page we can just grab this one right here called new Stroke Pro, and then just drag it onto your clip, and then we will get a nice stroke. We can also access inside of Fusion page just by tapping on Shift and Space and typing new Stroke Pro, and then you can see we get a nice stroke. So then we have a couple of presets that we can choose from, like this right here, but I'll just do the custom curve, but I'll just do custom preset. So the first thing we can change is what the source is. So either we can do alpha or we can do luminance. I'll just almost every time do alpha, which basically just means it's going around the object you're having. Luminance will just be targeting the brighter colors. So as you can see right here, we can, when you have luminance, it will just go around like the brightest part. So yeah, I'll just get it back to alpha. And then with the position, you can choose whether it's going on the center, so it scales inwards and outwards, if it goes outside, or if it goes inside and becomes an inside stroke. Then we can also change the corner roundness, so let's make it really big, then you can see it easier. Then we can just choose if we want the corners to be completely sharp, or if we want them to be a little bit rounded like this. For this, I'll just make it sharp like that. And then we can also choose if we want to add some softness into it, or if we want to add a little bit of a gap between like the outline and whatever we have as what the stroke is on. I'll just do like this here and turn down the width a little bit. And then if we want to as well, we can also make it a two-tone. So this basically allows us to make it white and then add like a gradient color to it, like this right here. But I'll just remove that. And then we can also do multi-stroke. So let's say that we want to add another stroke on the other stroke right here. Then we just enable at stroke 1, we get a multi-stroke, and we can make this red, for example, make it a little bit wider, and also add some gap if we want to as well. Then we can also add a second stroke, or actually a third stroke, and we can make that size we want to, add some softness if we want, and we can even add a third stroke like this, which is pretty cool. But what I probably will use the stroke most for is text, so we can also add the stroke to our text. So just type in Shift and Space and type New Stroke Pro, and then we can make it like a dark color. I'll turn down the radius, but as you can see here, if we turn down the corner roundness on, for example, text, it will start doing like weird shapes when there is a circle. Then it will just be kind of sharp, this circle. So for circles and for text and stuff, I'll just usually leave the corner roundness on 1. Then we can add a multi-stroke, so we can add another stroke around it. And then we can make this red, for example, and we can add a third stroke like this, and then we can actually get a pretty cool look with the multi-stroke. And that's basically how you can use the New Stroke Pro. Now let's continue on to the next effect. The next effect is the new paper curl. Curl basically allows you to make like this super clean paper curl effect like this one right here. So you can either use this on the edit page or the fusion page, depends on what you want. So on the edit page, you can grab it right over here, and it's called new paper curl, or you can just go into the fusion page, and then you can tap Shift and Space and type new paper curl, and then you have it right there. Then you can also grab a couple of presets you can choose from, and then you can choose like the curl amount. You can choose the mode, which is classic or corner pull. Corner pull basically just, you can see that we can animate it like by dragging this center property kind of thing. But I'll usually just do classic where we can choose the curl amount and the curl rotation animated that way. And then we can also choose the bend amount. So this is just how it's bending. I usually always just leave this as 1. And then we have the curl center, which is also something that I won't really touch, because this will just give us some pretty weird looks for the most part. You will be able to use it on some stuff, but yeah, it'll just give you like some weird looks. So I just recommend to leave that at 1. Then the curl, the roll radius, I would either recommend you to go like on 1, but I also like to drag it down sometimes, because then we will also be able to get some pretty clean paper curl animations. And then you can also change the corner curl if you want to, which also gives you like a slight look, like you can see up here. You can see that's just how the corners are curling basically. And let's say you want to animate it, but you can either animate it with like the curl amount slider here, or you can go into the animation page. And on the animation page, you can just enable animation, and then I'll basically animate on for you like that. And then you can choose when you want the animation to start. So let's say you want it to start at frame 100. You can just go to frame 100 and press an on curl at this frame, and then it will basically uncurl like that. And then you can just choose how long the animation will last, which is also pretty cool. Then you can choose the easing type. So you can either do linear like this here, or you can do ease in where it goes slow in the beginning, fast in the end, or you can do ease out where it goes fast in the beginning and then slows down, or ease in out, which I recommend for the most part, where it just go slow in the beginning, speeds up, and then it slows down again. Then you can also add some motion blur just to make it look even cleaner like that. And then if you want to, you can also add some waviness. So as you can see right now, we have some waviness down in the bottom corner, which is pretty cool. Then you can add like these nice waviness. If you want to make it even more wavy, you can just drag up the wavier amount like that. And that's basically how you can use the new paper curl. Now we will take a look at how you can use the new Chroma. So you can either use the new Chroma for motion graphics. You can also use it on real life videos. Like for example here, we can make like this zoom out kind of look with the new Chroma, which is also a super clean look. And yeah, you can also just add some chromatic aberration to your footage. First, I'll just try and show you how you can do it on this motion graphic that I made. And you can also access this on the edit page if you want to, like with inside of the effects core pack, and then just drag it onto your clip. Now we'll just go into the fusion page of this one, and then I'll show you how to use it in there. So in the fusion page, you'll basically just access it by pressing Shift and Space and typing new Chroma, and then you can choose the center of it, which really won't change anything when we're only using the displacement amount. But if we make it like a zoom, you can see it will change where like the chromatic aberration is coming from. The displacement amount is just if you want like this clean chromatic aberration going from side to side or up and down like this here. You can do that. Then you can also make like a zoom chromatic aberration where there isn't a lot of chromatic aberration in the middle, but there's quite a lot out towards the edges. You can also do like the rotation chromatic aberration like this, which also can give some pretty clean looks as well. You can even kind of animate these things if you want to, which is also pretty nice. We can also do like this Lens Distort chromatic aberration, which basically just makes it really affected around the edges. The iteration is just how many samples of it we have. So if we do 3, we only have like 1 of the reds, we have 1 of the greens, and we have 1 of the blues. If we drag it up, you can see we get 64, and then it'll just become almost like blurry looking compared to when it's only at 3 like this. So this is just like a normal RGB split right here. Then the blend is just here. You can just control like the overall blend, and the colors you can choose which colors you want to be using, like this, and then you can choose from a couple of different presets. Pretty much always just go with the classic RGB look, and this chromatic aberration is just a lot higher quality than, for example, the prism blur right here. If we grab that, you can see prism blur, just drag down the blur shrink and the aberration. It will just look a lot better with the new Chroma compared to that one. And as you can see, we can also make these kind of effects for if you want to make an intro zoom or something, you can make this chromatic aberration effect. So this is basically where I just keyframe the Lens Distort at this and then just made it go to 0. And that's basically it for the new Chroma. Now I'll show you how you can use the new reflection, which is basically used to add like these nice reflections like this one right here, where you can just reflect an icon, you can reflect a logo, you can reflect some text, you can basically reflect anything that you want. So you can either access this on the edit page and just take the new reflection, drag it onto your clip, or you can go into the diffusion page and just add it right here. So then you can just press on shift and space, type new reflection, and then add it. Then we have a couple of presets that you can choose from. If you want to be like this wet kind of look, you can do that. You can also just do a normal custom mirror look. And then you can also squash it if you want to. So basically just like a kind of compress it vertically, and you can choose like the opacity of it. You can add distance blur, so as you can see, maybe it will just kind of blur when it goes into the distance here, which is also pretty cool. Then you can also choose the fall off. So with the fall off right here, you can basically just add some nice natural fall off by dragging down the fall off distance and adding some softness into it, and then you just choose how it will be looking with the curve here. Then with distortion, you can add that water kind of look, like this here, and with the phase you can just choose which phase it's in and add some animation speed as well, so it actually starts animating the watery look, which is also pretty cool. And yeah, that's basically how you can use the new reflection. And now let's take a look at the new halftone, which can add some really nice halftone effects to your footage. So I'll just show you how you can use it on this clip here, but you can also use it on your motion graphics or whatever. So this one right here, you can either add in Fusion page or you can add it on the edit page. So on the edit page, you'll just go over here to the effects core pack, grab the new halftone, and there you get it. And right now it looks really harsh, so I'll just drag down the blend a little bit like that, and then it will be looking a lot better. Then there's also some custom presets, so you can do like this kind of newspaper look here, where you can see it's kind of like that classic newspaper look. You can also do like this called comic print, where it will basically look like this kind of comic book kind of look. And you also do a screen print this here, or you can do like a subtle texture, which is my preferred one to use. Then you can choose like the dot size, so how big are the dots in the halftone or how small are they, and then the blur, just kind of like which colors I'm targeting. So if I just do normal here, straight up, you can see the blur is just how kind of which colors is getting affected by the halftone. And then with the contrast, you can make the definition even sharper with it. And then with the angle, we can just choose like the angle of the halftone. So if I make it a bit bigger, you can see it a little bit easier maybe. So if I do like 45, it will be like diagonal. If I do 0, it'll just go up and down. Then we choose it, whether it's like this kind of line look right here, or you can even do like square like this. And you can also choose if you want it to be like a cyan magenta yellow look, which is this one right here, or just mono. Mostly I'll just use mono, but you can also do a CMYK, like this is what gives it like that comic book look. And then you can choose like the colors you want. So you can choose if the paper color should be like this orange color, for example. Then if we just drag this up, you can see we get this kind of paper look as we had before as well with the preset, like the newspaper look. So yeah, that's basically how you can use the new halftone. You can add it on anything, basically your motion graphics, your videos, whatever, just to add some texture and make it look even better. Now let's just go ahead and take a look at the inner shadow, which you can add on text like this, you can add it on icons, you can add it on basically anything that you want an inner shadow on. So you can use this on both the Fusion page and the edit page as well. So So I'll just delete this one right here and grab inner shadow. With this one right here, you can just choose if the edge source should be alpha or it should be luminance. So with luminance, just target the brightest area. So let's say I make this like gradient instead and make 90 and line instead. You can see we are getting on the white text here, we are getting like a nice inner shadow, but over here where the text is dark, we won't be getting a lot of inner shadow. So usually I just use alpha for the most part, but you can do luminance if you want to. Then you can just choose like the radius of it. You can choose how intense is it, and you can also choose like the fall off. So this is also like choose how intense is it. Then you can choose like the shape, so you can make it go into the text like this. You won't really be using this much for text like that, but you can use it for other stuff. And then with the offset, you can offset it inwards like this, so you can create a nice shadow coming from the left side down below with the offset and the angle. Choose where it's coming from. That's basically it for the inner shadow. And now we'll just take a look at the inner glow, which is working kind of the same way, but just with white instead and like a highlight instead, like some nice glow, inner glow on the inside of icons and text or whatever. So you can also find this right here in the effects core pack, and you can also get it in the fusion page if you want to. Then we can just choose the edge source, so we can do luminance again, and then we can drag it down, and then we can actually add like this inner shadow only on the orange right here and not out here. We can also just drag it down like this, and then we'll get it from the outside. But I'll just do alpha again, and then we'll get it from the outside here. Then we choose the intensity, and we can also add some fall off to make it even more intense once we drag that up. With the glow shape, we can also make it even bigger, even smaller or whatever. We can actually drag it down a little bit, offset it like that, and then you can add a nice inner glow at the top right here. Just turn it down a bit like that. Now we'll take a look at the tritone, and the tritone basically allows us to have an image and only make like 3 colors. So for example, we can make it white, black and orange. So I'll just go into this fusion composition here and when we take a look at it, then we have like this blue motion graphic here, but then we can just add it to make it any color that we want. So at the presets here, we can choose a couple of different ones, and yeah, that's pretty cool. We can also make it orange like this and make the shadow color like this instead, and that's pretty cool. So now we have made it orange, the motion graphic, instead of blue. And we can also add this to videos that we have like shot with a camera. So this one right here, for example, we can add where do we have it, a new tritone right here, and then we can make it like teal and orange, for example. Right now it's pretty much only teal, but with the midpoint here we can add a little bit of orange into it and just drag down the blend a little bit, and then we can add like a teal and orange kind of blood look, as you can see. But yeah, I usually mostly just use this for motion graphic. Then we can just set the midpoint. Actually, I guess if I grab a gradient instead, it will be easier to show you. Then with the midpoint here, we can basically choose where the midpoint is. So if it's going into the shadows, if the midpoint is going into the highlight, and the zone softness, as you can see, is just affecting like how harsh is the transition from black to midtone to white. Contrast is also just how big is darkest area, how big is the midpoint, and the saturation is just saturation in the midpoint, and yeah, and the highlights and shadows. Preserve luminance is just, let's say we have this motion graphic down here. If we want to swap the highlights and shadows, we can't really do that if we have preserve luminance on, because then it will just keep its value down here. So if it's black, it will keep staying black. If this is white, it will keep staying light. But if we remove this checkbox, we can make the black white, we can make the whites black and all that stuff. So that's pretty cool. And if we play a little bit with the other stuff, you can also see how that might affect it. So if we start dragging up the midpoint, we can start making the whites orange almost. And with the saturation, we can make them even more saturated. And if we drag this zone softness down, you can see the transitions will be a lot harsher into each other. But yeah, that's basically how we can use the new tritone. Now let's take a look at the new emboss. And the new emboss is just to add this really clean emboss to your stuff. So for example, here I made this EMV chip where without the emboss, you can see it doesn't look that realistic, but we add this kind of 3D look when we use the emboss on it. So you can either use the emboss on the fusion page or the edit page. Let's try and use it on the edit page here. Then we just grab the emboss right there, and then we can choose choose like the spread, so that's just how big is it. We can choose the angle. The blur is just kind of blurring the spread, and the sharpness is just how sharp is this. It's a little bit hard to see on this specific one right here, but yeah, you can see once I start dragging up the blur size, you can see if we drag down the sharpness, it will be very soft like the emboss. The strength is just how intense is like the emboss, and then height is coming from brightness or alpha. So alpha is just coming from the edges, brightness where we can make this 3D look where it's coming from the brightness, the emboss. And then we can choose if we want it to be a gray relief emboss like the default emboss that's in DaVinci Resolve, or if we want it to be over image. Then we can choose the mode if we want it to be overlay or if we want it to be normal. Overlay is typically what we use the most on emboss effects, but you can also do normal if you want to. Then we can drag down the blend. So let's say we've made it a bit too intense, then we can just go ahead and drag down the blend a little bit, and that's it. Then we can also choose the colors of it if we want to. This won't really work on overlay, then we'll just need to make it normal, and then we can change whatever colors that we want to. But yeah, that's basically it for the new emboss. And that's everything in the update. And if you already own the effects core pack or the full stack bundle, everything in this update is completely free. We've just sent you a mail with the newest download link, so you can just run the installer and you have the newest version of the pack. And everything we have built previously with the old version of the pack stays exactly as it was. And if you don't have the pack yet and you like what you saw, grab it from the link in the description. And if you have any questions about the pack or the update, you can leave a comment and I'll answer it. Thanks for watching and have a great day out there.